council and others the state of our city, which I'm required to do under our Alexandria City Charter. Let me start by saying that we all have lenses through which we measure, judge, assess, and decide on how to proceed with challenges. The Alexandrias are big, and they aren't going to change without being together. Not just saying we're together, but actually being together. I campaigned on 3 messages. I thought they were pretty clear, and I'll go over them again very quickly. We said that essentially we had to do these 3 things in mostly a linear order. Not exactly, but mostly. Public safety, basic services, and then and only then would we be in a position, or what I might call house ready, for development through the reimagining of Alexandria. I'm going to jump to the end of this real quick. We will accomplish every goal that we set forth. I'm glad to be here and excited to be here. I'm excited to have all of you on this team. And I'm committed to do what has to be done every day. We will get this house of ours on the market and sell its beauty, people, and resources once again. So my contractor friends about whom I'm going to make an announcement they'll like, we're going to be broom ready soon, but it takes time. We will not just do this because we cannot afford not to do it, but because when things have been down, Alexandria has always found its way back. From closure of an Air Force base that challenged us all those years ago, to the biggest growing challenge of all, which is our technological and educational completion and training, and how that relates to, no matter how good our partners are doing, and they are, how that relates to a ready workforce and how it relates to getting people out of poverty. And that is the challenge of this community. We've all got to do better in every way to bring people out of poverty. All of the issues you hear, all of the things on social media, no matter whether we all agree with how someone got there or what choices people make, poverty drives that. And poverty makes us all do lots of things that maybe we wouldn't do not in those circumstances. It won't happen with lip service or snake oil sales, ladies and gentlemen. It will not happen through those who mean well but are selling you a government bailout by a government incapable of bailing you out. It will be with our schools, with our CLTCC, LSUA, and all of our other partners all throughout this region, from Natchitoches to Pineville and elsewhere, helping us get a ready workforce and educated populace doing what we all want ultimately. The ultimate justice is that economic justice that we all seek. I'm a measurer. I measure more than once, sometimes many more times than maybe you want me to, or perhaps I need to, so that I cut once. It is just my nature. I also like to measure after we do things to see if the action was right, if the action we took was right. I like to check for the planned result to see if that result occurred. And I like to ensure it'll hold into the future, what we call sometimes in development life cycling. Will that thing you measured and will that thing that you cut or accomplished or did, will it life cycle out and last? So that brings up planning and life cycling our decisions. You have to plan your work and work your plan, as Vince Lombardi is credited with saying. But as Mike Tyson is credited along with others, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's the life in the city right now. A punch in the face of what may have been for a lot of folks growing up a bucolic memory, here replaced with the worried squint and eyes facing a coming storm. We are a city. We have big city problems. And we have big city challenges that go with them. But it doesn't mean you drop good planning. Like most things in life, that's not a sufficient approach, though it's part and a necessary one. You have to be nimble enough to call an audible when needed. We called that audible. Now let's get back to the plan, management, and leadership to get the job done, but remembering it can't happen overnight. So let's talk. I didn't finish this talk last December when I was sworn in, and I didn't finish it at a chamber talk that I gave thereafter. But I was trying to make a larger point that change is inevitable, and change in and of itself can be a good thing, but it's not the only thing. And it has to be change that's best when done smartly. It's about reimagining everything in this city and our place and the way in which we optimize this physical space we call Alexandria. It includes optimizing existing resources, but certainly it must include how we can reimagine and project Alexandria into an increasingly competitive world, where cities like ours better learn faster adaptation techniques. In a year, I have to say, we need to be faster, and we need to adapt better. So let's get the elephant out of the room. You can't change, and you can't ascend, and you can't move forward with infrastructure and the things necessary to make us safe and prosperous if a few, but a material few, will not accept rules, any rules. We will not play by the same rules in taking care of the choices we make unless we make choices that are ending the criminal epidemic that we're seeing, ending the spread of infectious misinformation, and ending the idea that we all don't have some level of paying into the community our fair share. Nothing more, nothing less. Fair share. The 4 years before coming back into office, there was not a single definitive, large-scale infrastructure project planned and completed. Recreation assets fell into shambles, including buildings growing mold, one of which I personally saw and shut down personally right after I saw it. Made a lot of people happy. A lot of pickleball players weren't too happy with me, but the mold was real. It was clear. We tested it, and we fixed it, and we ameliorated this problem. But the idea that that could happen in an area like that shouldn't be. Our electric utility is on the verge of complete collapse upon coming into office, and there was no significant number of police vehicles purchased for 4 years. And when I say no significant, I mean almost not measurably. A few here and there. All of that contributed to a police department with an all-time low morale. And I've seen the department wax and wane in my career, and I've seen it in other careers that were not mine years ago. But it was pretty negative upon walking back into office. I didn't make a negative campaign when I ran, and I have tried to avoid looking in a rearview mirror and criticizing. I always felt it was unneeded and sometimes even rude. You live on your plan and your accomplishments. You don't live by tearing down another, no matter if deserved. But I don't want to be confusing here, and I don't want you to be confused with what got us here. I don't want to confuse the fix with the problem, and you shouldn't either. Help is available for anyone willing to be part of helping themselves and helping us get this house in order. But whether it's crime or chronic bill avoidance in our utility, the rest of us can't afford it. We can neither afford the criminal activity, and we cannot afford not paying into this system our fair share. And I'm going to tell you why. We can't afford it, and we can't break the law and indiscriminately give away public things to do it. Everyone has to step up. We've got to try and change bad behavior with better choices. And there's more of a role for us to play in that, and we will. We outlined a very definitive plan, a plan that derives from 3 previous and measurably successful terms. I've served as your mayor and spent thousands of hours doing homework about what makes this city work. It derives also from the continuity of knowing that my predecessor, Ned Randolph, was something and someone upon which we could build. Continuity is critical. You've always got to look at what was done and think about how to maximize that effort and move forward. So there's no reason to stay in any blame assignment, ladies and gentlemen, but to move forward, you got to know what went wrong. And that will come out in a series of State of the City presentations this month, which outline that, as well as auditing, which I had done immediately upon coming in office. My campaign was about fixing things with those three clear approaches: public safety, infrastructure, basics, and development. A year into office, all evidence points to sticking to the plan, even when, in our unfortunate fast food view of the world, we wish we could snap our fingers and everything gets fixed. These problems didn't occur overnight, and they will not be fixed overnight. Be clear about that. I've said before, and I'll tell my fellow citizens again, doing not enough over a 4-year period in a world moving fast does not mean you're 4 years behind. That's just not how it works anymore. It means you're a decade behind, because everybody else and all the other competition and all the other things are moving quickly. So when you're standing still, you're not going to be out just that amount of time. You're going to be out all the innovation, all the ingenuity, and all the other things others were doing to leap far ahead of you. We'll fix these issues. We'll put this ship in order, and we'll bring Alexandria to a new height. Alexandria is rising, but the tip of an iceberg hides a large volume underneath. You're not seeing out there some of the things it takes to get there. You're not seeing some of the challenges to our employees, the atrophy of management across many lines, how hard city employees are willing to work in modern circumstances in which they are challenged in all new ways on social media and elsewise, and by people who thrive on turmoil in this community. Those things have a real effect on our employees at our customer service building and elsewhere. How quickly a division like Public Works, Mr. Gill, has responded simply to being engaged with leadership in a spirit of getting things done. I see it in the Fed, Ms. Corley, I see it in everything we do, that feeling like, all right, this is how we used to get it done, how we used to make it happen. So let's start there. The Winterfest of last year, the Winterfest of last year, I thought, had a lot of challenges. And the Winterfest of this year was a much larger event with 2 to 3 times more events and activities. That's more money for every vendor. That's more value per tax dollar of everyone attending who pays a rec tax to attend it. That's more talk generated about what's happening in the city and putting the city in a positive light and generating positive views of the city, which is a rarity today. And it creates more ingenuity in the city to meet challenges as expectations once again rise. Once again make for an Alexandria on the rise. Because after all, when you have people thinking about new ways to make that festival better, new people entering into it, the Indie Village, all of those different components in place, makes people rethink how they're going to run the logistics or bring in a new party or person. All of that is important. We completed and reported on our 100-day plan on the day. I want to remind people of part of that with public safety. Our Public Safety Plus plan was all about rewarding our men and women in uniform with new opportunities, creative solutions. We also wanted to move us in a leading pay and benefits portion. We want to expand our police, make sure they're outfitted with proper equipment and the ability to do that job, and really focus on community policing, intel-led policing, and those things. On the first 3, because the last is going to take lots more work to get in place, we have provided incentive pay for those post-certified, so already post-certified officers, $10,000 sign-on. For new officers, a $5,000 sign-on is available for those officers who are coming into a new academy. We assumed, as the city, the health and retirement portions through a series of executive orders implementing our Public Safety Plus plan by the administration and adopted by the City Council, who saw and had the vision to make sure this happened. We implemented a plan to take over the retirement and health for at least a 2-year period to retain and attract new officers. We can revisit that and how long we want to do it. That's a raise. That's a big amount of value that goes to those officers, and they were not only pleased but expressed it. We have been advertising our recruitment spotlights, and we are looking at one of the largest hiring moments for police in many decades. I've talked to our deputy chief and chief, and I don't want to give a stat to it, but we're looking at probably 14 today, so somewhere in the 10 to 20 range, assuming everybody that applies comes in, and as many as 20 would be huge, record-setting. So again, you have a year. As you know, Rick, a whole year goes by, and you want to let people know, but you're getting something in order, and at the end, we're giving you that report card. But 20 officers, 15 to start next year is a huge amount in the challenge of today. And as we add more plans for our Public Safety Plus plan, I think you're going to see that number grow because people want to be in APD. Record equipment purchases, the largest we can find other than a pure building purchase like the building of the public safety complex. Other than that, I've checked with my guys, we've done the research, there's nothing close to the $3.1 million plus we put just in equipment, cars, etc. It's historical, and it was needed. I think 52 vehicles. And so I hear not just from people who see officers in them, but from them how happy that makes folks. We're deploying lots of intel out there and lots of intel-led policing. Lots of special equipment is being purchased and has been that saves lives. And it doesn't just save lives of officers, it saves lives of citizens because it allows you to deploy means to interdict crime without death. That is a critical thing. So sometimes when people see what can look like militarization or other things, those things actually save people. We're careful about how we balance that. But from drones to other things, you can save lives with the type of intelligent use of equipment that we're moving toward. I see a change in the morale, and the engagement is markedly different there. The chief allows me with his team to do a lot of leadership planning and other things, especially with detectives. We did a lot earlier this year, and it pays off. It builds trust, and those guys are working harder than ever. But there's a lot more complication to crime than just good policing and making arrests. And our community has to come together on that. Staying in public safety and moving on to the fire department. When we came in, we were on the verge of losing our fire rating 2. Let me say that again. We were on the verge of losing a 2, which would have drastically affected your property insurance at home. We always said a 1 was unachievable by a city with our circumstances, so it was about keeping that 2. And we even rationalized with ourselves that a 1 really wouldn't make enough difference, so we just got to make sure of the 2. When I came in, we were going to lose a 2. We challenged our fire department. We had a new chief to select. We had a new leadership team that was coming into place, but we also had guys like assistant chief, and he also served as interim chief Tarver and others who really went to work with Sam Allen, the new chief. They took it upon themselves that this was going to be serious, and we drove it and we pushed it. But man, those guys went after this fire rating 2 like nobody's business. And what did they do? They measured, they dug in, they looked at the data behind it for the first time in years, and they didn't get the 2 after all of that work. They got a 1. We're now a fire rating 1 for the first time in any memory I have of being involved or that I know about. And I get calls from citizens and see on social media people actually getting a reduction in property insurance. Their company writes them and says, congratulations, your city has achieved this, and they lower it. I can't explain to you how big that is in Louisiana right now, where the legislative session and everything is about insurance in our state being so crazy. That's a real deliverable to you that came from real work, hard work by a new team. So congratulations to Chief Tarver, Chief Allen, and your whole team for getting this done. It was incredible to watch. Basic services. Mr. Gill, Operation Cleanout, that we knew we needed to do right away, delivered about 38,000 linear feet of diversion bodies, ditches, big canals, etc., cleaned. We have lots of information on that we'll be showing, but big difference in flood risk and other things, again, that affect people's property. I said earlier, the Winterfest has been restored to its former status as a premier regional festival. We cleaned up tens upon tens of unstatused, poorly stated cooperative endeavor agreements and are on the way to reestablishing a recreation division that functions properly. This is unforgiving hard work, and it doesn't win friends. When you say no, or you need more information, or you want more deliverables in an agreement, you're not making somebody happy every time. But it's not our money. It's yours. And if you produce a measurable result, and if it's fair to the city, we want to partner with you. And if you are making money off public assets unfairly and the private gain outweighs the public benefit, we're going to look into that because we have to. We're required to. It's just that simple. But we need more partnering from folks who take it seriously, want to make sure that public benefit outweighs private benefits. We've got lots of assets, most of the time still underutilized. We'd like to see them utilized more. We cleaned up the city. We won our Cleanest City division and the state award in our class, Category 1, for the first time in years. I ordered and just had approved. I started off with the comparisons about a broom swept clean. When you build a new house, you know what that means. They're supposed to turn those keys over to you, and it's supposed to be cleaned up. And I will tell our contractor something new is happening. We have approved and will be sending down legislation to make us the lowest or within the lowest permit fee schedule in the state that affects our contractors, builders, housing industry partners, etc. That is part of our Grow with Alexandria campaign as promised. They don't know it yet. Most of them aren't going to see this address. They'll just have to start hearing about it. But we're going to get it out to them. But they sure are going to be happy when they see it. Also, related to our Grow with Alexandria campaign, we won a Busy Award for the best site recently on that. I want to thank Rick and his whole crew, Richard Johnson over at Planning, Melinda Grimion and their crew for doing this. Also under their leadership, Rick Ranson, Richard Johnson, Melinda and others, we have placed the Weiss and Goldring building under an MOU for private redevelopment, a huge plus for our downtown partners. We championed the CLTCC campus last time, bundling the property up and making the finances to make that happen being put in place. This year is promised in equal dignity, in equal fashion. We budgeted $3 million for the LSUA downtown campus. With the electric, utility, and other basic services, we created Restore, a unique project to help those in need under emergency circumstances. It's provided over $1 million in grants to date, which are never owed back in any circumstances from the city standpoint or any other standpoint. Along with, in Restore, restructuring long-standing debt of customers as of November 12, 2023, to the tune of 7,200 delinquent accounts into payment arrangements totaling over $7.8 million, folks. People at home don't know how much the utility's been affected. And maybe giving those numbers has no meaning to anybody because they don't know what to measure that against. We'll be providing you municipal utility basics over the next few weeks, and you'll understand how big a number that is. Lots of those terms were 6 and 12 months amortizations to help and assist families. Except for Restore. except for, meaning had it not been put into place, all of those disconnects for non-payment would have been due in the spring of 2023. I didn't create this. My team did create this. This was something we walked into and inherited 100%. Not 99, not 99.9, 100%. We'll have more on that, but it's important to know that Restore was designed to recognize and help and assist people because we recognize, hey, there are lots of issues with the city. We're going to assign value to contributing to help people, because the last thing we want to do is bankrupt a family or make it where you could never collect it anyway. From a financing standpoint, that would have been a dumb move for the city. But the things being said about Restore and the misinformation out there, scandalous, scurrilous, some of it just silly. The problem is it caused a lot of people who needed Restore not to get it. And it was available and would have helped them. And that is a shame. And anybody responsible for doing that to somebody on fixed income or somebody that needed it, that's a shame on you. 7,200 delinquent accounts, 7.8 million. So that ordinance was introduced and it passed 1 week into office. It was introduced by unanimous consent before I came into office. On that day a year ago when I was sworn in, a year ago yesterday when I was sworn into office, the past due balances, those balances extending beyond a net 30 days, which anywhere else is due for a cutoff, including here, were $9.05 million across 7,400 accounts. That's 26,000 account holders we have. That means 28% of all accounts. Anybody who runs a business, imagine that number, 28%. That statistic represented a fatal crisis to the AUS, to the utility system. The day I was sworn in a year ago yesterday, the total receivables in the utility were $16 million. This is folly. It has to be fixed. And Restore was designed to help. And the use of something that comes from the idea of grace and assistance and helping people to hurt folks is again, not only shameful, it's dangerous to the city. It represents additional existential crises and threats to our city. As of November 12, 2023, delinquent ratepayers owed the AUS $4.864 million, plus about $500,000 in what I would call current past due, so 30 or so or under. Restore works and helps people willing to work with the city. Stop listening to the misinformation. It's being spread and designed to take advantage of paying ratepayers by chronic non-payers. Don't blame the fix for the problem. Independent auditing shows the AUS net position decreased $10.5 million because of prior mismanagement. Again, not a lick of it occurred under this administration. In contrast, the last few audits I had leaving being mayor were outstanding, including a perfect audit with not one finding. I didn't have material ones or charter violations, but there would always be a finding here and there about, I can remember the one that drove us crazy was there was not a receipt for some hay purchased at the zoo, which was found later and still made the finding. I thought that was a ridiculous thing to put in a finding for a $200 million operation, but that's how strict it was in the way we looked at it. We retained again and received and again received very good bond rating assessments, including an upgraded bond rating to AA, a huge testament to the actual financial choices we made with the utility as a backstop. We received national top budgeting awards every year. We added to retained earnings for real not gimmicky accounting where we're robbing Peter to say Paul is fine. You can't take from one area of the city to backstop another area and say, oh, it's all great, when the area from which you take is broke. That doesn't work in any accounting. You can do any gimmick you want, but when the audit comes, it's going to find it, and it did. The utility is not your enemy. It is the champion of services this city at our size could never provide without it. Buses, etc. We would never be able to do those things. And we do that all without having raised the electric utility rate. Here's a hard fact, 1986. You tell me if your bread, your milk, your gasoline, anything else you've done has stayed at 1986 rates. That's what the city receives money from, the rate portion. We're going to go over all of that in here and get everybody on the same page. The claims we make are audited by third parties. They can be attacked, assailed, anything anybody wants, but come with your proof, because we'll have ours. We got to get past this, ladies and gentlemen. We got to get on the same page. The payments that were outstanding in the AUS have to be collected. There were millions of dollars. We cannot let the utility fail. We cannot do that. Some of the things I hear that you hear, like the utility is half the city budget, the utility, just none of those are true. We'll be glad to take every rumor that I've been personally writing at every meeting, which I do, sitting right back there, write it down when I hear it. Someone's at the mic. Probably sever out a little of the stuff that matters less, get to the heart of it, and I write it down, and I've written them all down. The emails, everything that comes to the city. Anybody's account that I hear or makes it to me, we check it. Like many council members, I have yet to see when someone has a complaint that there wasn't a huge past due part. We'll have some new ways to help combat that with community partners who want to work with us, honestly and truthfully next year. We always work. It's all part of Restore. I want to just end on that utility part because it's tough, but people need to know how hard we're working to help you on it. If the city's utility were to fail, the city is right behind it. The things people want to see happen are right behind it. And people say things like, well, why have a winter FET if people need help on their utilities? Well, the winter FET is paid by a choice the taxpayers made to pass a recreation tax to dedicate it to those activities. After all, other taxpayers want to go to the winter FET. They don't give me permission to take their tax money and give it to someone else for their utility bill. That's actually illegal. So think about it. Just think through the process of what we're having to do to stand up and make that work. That doesn't mean we're not figuring out through ingenuity and other ways like we did with Restore, recognizing the need of our citizens, recognizing those people at risk, recognizing vulnerable communities that need it. But vulnerable communities, fixed income communities, and at-risk folks are not the same thing, and we're always going to stand and come up with ways to help them, as chronic non-payers giving misinformation and abusing all of you. And while that may sound harsh, it is my job to make sure I do the homework to distinguish between the two. To distinguish between the two. So, we got to stop the madness. We can't have some ratepayers pay for other ratepayers without their permission. There are ways to do things that help. We did a huge one already. We'll do more. But you got to get out of the idea that paying a utility bill is an option. It's not an option in any other city. So it can't be an option in ours. I know it's tough to think 12 months in on public safety, basic services getting in order, and then thinking about this reimagined plan, how you want to, again, snap your fingers and see more happen. It's going to take longer than just even now to get everything like we need it. But you've heard the challenges we faced. I've given you some pretty stark numbers. And you know there's been a vigorous start when you hear what we've done in each of those areas. We are a community of diverse people with a profound sense of community, churches and faith organizations, our service clubs, recreation and arts assets way beyond the punch and weight of this little city. Location, and natural resources. Raising children and living here is something everyone points to in our region. Being connected to all of Louisiana in a flash. Truly the place, this Alexandria, is where Louisiana connects. As Alexandrians, you caution your children about the expectations and the work it takes to achieve goals. We tell our kids if they want to be serious in academics and athletics, they have to make sacrifices to get there. If we want Alexandria to rise, we have to put the hard work in to fix what's broken. We have to be brave about solutions, question past behavior, and then implement plans with the discipline and the stick-to-itiveness to get there. We got to hold leaders to that as well. Basic requirement for a mayor is whether upon leaving a city you left it better off than you found it. I believe I can definitively say I left Alexandria in measurably good shape, and I found it again with some atrophy, with some listlessness, but most importantly, with a utility and financial ruin. But the citizens made a choice, and we will, again, fix those things and put everything in good stead. We also know that in past times there were other challenges, from COVID, ice storms, hurricanes. You know, there are things that happen, but you got to be prepared for those things. So here's the money question. For the first time in my public career, on whether the state of the city is sound, I will for the first time not be able to make a categorical statement. In each State of the City speech I've ever given, that's 12, this being the 13th, I've concluded in those previous 12 the state of the city to be sound. Today, the state of our city is in flux. Aspects of it are sound, aspects of the city are in crisis. One or more areas have faced, but do not any longer, I think, but have faced existential crises. Our capital financing, aspects of financing in general, and the utility being the ones that I'm talking about. As an example, recently you voted on a renewal, a pure renewal, of an existing, long-time existing property millage that deals with your capital tax dollars. What builds streets, what keeps them up, the big capital items. Not operations, not salaries, none of that. In a low voter turnout, where it was clearly going to pass at the last second, some folks purposefully went in and defeated it and bragged about it. Who do you think is affected by not passing a renewal of your capital tax? That was half your capital dollars. That comes due soon. Was that a wise decision? Was that smart to defeat that? While clamoring for more to do, more things to happen, more things to be fixed? Boy, I don't usually do this, but let me answer it. It was a dumb thing to do. We got to do better. Today, 1 year in the office, the city is measurably in every area better than we found it, but there's a lot to do. We need the money to fix broken infrastructure. We need the money that goes to your capital dollars. We can fight and argue about operating money all day long, but that's not what just wasn't renewed. You didn't renew as a citizenry our basic need to pay for infrastructure. Now, plenty of blame to go around. Let's talk about what cities can do to do that. Can you put out more information about it? Limitedly, yeah, but not so easy. I can't from here tell you to pass a tax. I can tell you it's crazy that we didn't renew one, but I'm not going to tell you what you could go out and do. There's not one pending. When it comes back up, I won't be able to from here say what you should do. But boy, if it doesn't happen in that window, there's going to be a lot of regret about that. And it's going to affect you at home. All while some are saying, I'm not putting in my fair share. This was a property tax, by the way. A property tax. But I need to be able to make the choices I want to make and have no consequence. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. All right, this too shall pass. We're going to work these things out, and we'll be fine, I know. I'm committed. My team is committed. We recommit every day to each other. And with you together, we can reimagine everything about how we do our business and move forward. Would never want to end on negativity, but it's crazy not to tell you the challenges we face. Yesterday marked a year in office, a year to assess what was wrong, how to fix it, a year to assess in most cases whether and how to mend some of those things. What needed fixing, what things we need to just move on from and do a new way. I want to thank our first responders for their commitment in the toughest climate in decades in which to serve as police, fire, and other first responders. I want to thank those who move toward danger and not away from it. I want to thank our officers who de-escalate our worst problems every day. We're committed to justice in the city, and we're committed to making our police force, fire department, and all others in public safety stronger and better equipped to resolve problems. The notion of a house divided is attributed to Lincoln often. I usually end this talk with this. But it actually comes from a paraphrase of Matthew 12:25 when Jesus Christ said, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. Every city. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. Psalms 127:1. We have to do better about watching what's wrong, fixing what's wrong, being truthful about it, no matter how hard it is hitting and how it affects us. Alexandria is my home. I know we can do better. We must do better to protect the home we love and to make the city everything it can be for every citizen to live in a safe, clean place with opportunity to prosper. Personally, I want to thank all of you for your prayers, and I want to wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and have a safe and prosperous new year. This year, I'll ask for some additional prayers for my family and some tough medical challenges we went through. It was a notable year in my life. So far, we were blessed and looked to avoid the challenges many women go through, rending lives end from end. And I would be remiss not to take a personal moment of privilege to say that I know medical challenges ravage families. That I know that medical challenges bankrupt families. And I know that medical challenges take the joy out of the lives of people and their families. And I know those cold moments also bring the warmth of friends and family, angels in renewed faith, knowing for real what your corner looks like. And sometimes, as it was for me, a whole new depth of respect for someone you already love beyond measure. The state of the city is not where we need it to be. It's not where I want it to be. But it will be the next time I give you this address. The state of your team is sound. The state of our commitment is more than sound. God bless you. God bless Pineville and Alexandria, our parish and state, and the United States of America. Thank you.